Alright, we're running.
All right, everybody. Welcome to our first podcast. This one's going to be focused around recruiting. I'm going to first tell you about what my experiences were getting into Drexel University, a Division I college in Philadelphia. Around my junior year, I knew I wanted to go to a Division I college for wrestling. But I didn't really know how to do that, and nobody in my school, including my counselors or anything like that, knew how to go about doing that. So, the first thing that ended up getting in, kind of having a problem with was I didn't have all the credits I needed in order to compete at a Division I level. So,
for those of you who don't know what exactly that means, basically you have a certain number of English classes, certain number of math classes, health classes you need to take, and I'll let you explain exactly what your situation was, but if you don't meet the minimum requirement for the English classes, if you need 4 and you only have 3, that cancels you out. You cannot go and wrestle Division I.
Yeah, and a lot of times what will happen is you'll give up your first year of eligibility and you'll have to take that. Say if you only took 3 years of English, you'll take that 4th year and you'll miss out on a year of eligibility for wrestling, or you'll miss out on starting your wrestling career. For me, that's what it was. I took an English elective, and it actually didn't count as one of the credits for the NCAA. It was like some sort of like movie making class, essentially, and I needed to take an additional credit of English, which I kind of crammed into my senior year in order to wrestle Division I right out of high school.
So when did you find out that you didn't have enough English courses?
So I found out, I went to my counselor while I was kind of applying to these Division I schools, and I realized, I told my counselor, hey, I want to go Division I, and they told me that they're essentially this portal where you sign up as an athlete through. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it's this NCAA website where you sign up, and through that it kind of indicated that I didn't have the right amount of English credits, and that's when we kind of got creative with the teachers, and essentially the English class I was taking, I added more work on it and got it to count as two years of English.
So once you kind of had that part locked down and you decided, hey, I'm going D1, you've got your classes squared away where you have the core classes you're supposed to be taking. What was your next step into finding the school that you wanted to go to?
So for me, I really had 2 things. I wanted to go Division I wrestling, and I wanted to go into engineering. I didn't know how to reach out to coaches. I just applied the normal way, just applied through their school into the engineering programs. I didn't really have any particular school I wanted to go to. I ended up just getting into Drexel University, and that's where I went.
How many schools did you apply to?
I probably applied to 15 different schools. Looking back at it, I think I probably shouldn't have applied to the engineering specific programs. Even though I wanted to do engineering, I should have applied to a general admission, and that probably would have helped me get into more schools.
Is that because an engineering program is harder or more difficult to get into?
Yeah, engineering, if you normally go into particular programs, it's more difficult. If you applied specifically to the nursing program or the engineering program, somebody was telling me, if I was going to apply to Cornell, they told me I should have applied to, I think it was the agricultural, department, because that's easy, or the hospitality department, I think, at Cornell was easier to get into than the engineering one, which, at the time I didn't know, so I didn't really do that. And I had one Division I school looked at me after NHSCA National, Virginia Beach Nationals. The Campbell coach looked at me, but they weren't giving me a scholarship from there. I went back and forth with the coach a little bit. Essentially, they were just like, we want you here, but we can't give you a scholarship, which was whatever. It didn't have engineering, that's why I didn't really even end up applying to Campbell.
So after wrestling going into Virginia Beach your senior year, had any school reached out to you about wrestling? Any Division I school reached out to you about wrestling in their program?
No, and for me it was difficult because my junior year, I did very poorly. I took 6th at states, and I, whatever. My sophomore year, I didn't even wrestle at state, so I really was a state champ my freshman year. Didn't do anything sophomore, junior year, then senior year, which is normally Division I colleges are recruiting juniors, not seniors. So senior year, I, won states, placed New England's, beat a couple nationally ranked opponents, and that was almost too late because everybody already filled their spots up for this year coming up. So I ended up walking on at Drexel. Didn't even have that much academic scholarship. Ended up, wrestling very, very hard there. Earned my spot my redshirt freshman year, and just kind of earned my way to a half scholarship my junior year and a full ride my senior year. A big part of that, if you end up walking on a Division I team and you're looking for a scholarship, I think the two things that made a big difference was one is buying into the program and talking to the coaches. So if you are going to ask for money, you have to be you have to be kind of, one is you actually have to be producing things because you have to be doing stuff for the program. You have to be making it to nationals, or my sophomore year I placed at the conferences, so they gave me a half ride. My junior year I made it to nationals, so they gave me a full ride. That's essentially probably why. Also I asked. I think if I didn't ask, they might not have given me the full ride. They might have only given me a partial ride. But essentially, I was in a difficult financial situation, and I asked. I said, "Hey, I had a meeting with the coaches. A lot of people get nervous about that, but you got to ask. Hey, this is the situation I'm in. This is what I need in order to kind of finish out my college career."
Yeah. So you had mentioned you had some academic scholarship going in your freshman year. Now, did they tell you ahead of time what your academic scholarship would be, or did you kind of find out after you'd committed to that school, or what was your?
They tell you what your academic scholarship is going to be before you commit. They tell you what your financial aid is going to be, which is separate. So the academic is from the school, financial aid is from the school, but normally through the government, and they'll give you grants. For if your family doesn't have a lot of money, they'll give you more money for the school, depending on your financial situation, and then you'll also get loans from the government, which are normally have a lower interest rate, so essentially cheaper loans from the government instead of having to go privately to get loans. So that's. Yeah, I kind of knew everything going in, but this is what I wanted to do.
So did you have anybody telling you or advising you in any sort of way as to how to go about communicating with Division I coaches, how to reach out to them, what to be sending them, how to find them, where should I be going, what school should I be visiting, any of that at all?
No, I personally only knew. So nobody even knew how to go about doing this. Nobody in Rhode Island really. There wasn't many Division I wrestlers at the time from Rhode Island. There was the Labrie twins. There was Eric Travers from Cumberland. He went to SIUE, and then there was Machini from Cumberland as well, who actually was a senior when I wrestled at Drexel. But I didn't even know Nick Machini before I went to Drexel, and Eric Travers was also pretty old. And I reached out to Brown, but a lot of times with the Ivy Leagues, you really have to get in with the academic route. They really force you have to get in through admissions kind of before, but because they don't really have scholarship money. The Ivy Leagues don't have scholarship money like other programs, so you kind of just have to work through the admissions. They can give a good word in for you, but yeah, I mean, I didn't have any clue what to do. I didn't reach out to any coaches. I thought, okay, they're either going to reach out to me or nothing, but I never sent one email to any coach. I made it into Drexel and had my meeting after I knew I was going there. I had my meeting with my coach, and I just like was pretending like I had other choices of schools to go to when I was in the meeting. I was like,
that's good.
Can you give me anything? Like, can you help financially? But their hands are tied. Because they already, who even am I walking into this meeting? I'm a kid from Rhode Island. Who's about to slap up on every guy in their room.
That's good. That's a good point. So going off of that, I'll talk a little bit about, I guess, my recruiting process, or lack of recruiting process, and then I was a head assistant coach over at Sacred Heart for a season, and I got to see pretty much why I never got recruited, why you didn't get recruited, why we didn't have coaches messaging us about, hey, come visit our school and this and that. So basically, I going into my senior year, I had taken second at states. I was a 2-time state champ. I took third at New England's, and I was thinking, like, surely like some coaches got to be, send me some emails somewhere. Check my emails, nothing. I mean, I probably didn't. I don't think I got one email from a single coach across the country at all about wrestling. So I started to look, and at that point, I knew I wanted to wrestle in college, but I didn't really know exactly where. I kind of wanted to go away for school. I was looking at Division I. I didn't even really know much about the schools, the local schools like Johnson & Wales, Rick, Roger Williams, Brown. I had never really gone and visited any of them. So basically what I did after Virginia Beach, I set up a couple visits at I went and visited Roger Williams, but I didn't even look at their wrestling program. I just went with a friend to visit. Then I went to visit at Rick, and then I happened to meet one of the old Johnson & Wales coaches at either a youth or a high school tournament at Coventry High School, and he was like, he gave me his card. He's like, hey, whatever, we got wrestling, come check it out. And I'm thinking, I didn't really know what Johnson Wales was. I wrestled, but I wasn't really involved in any of the college. I didn't really watch college wrestling.
Is that Kanega?
Yeah, Kyle Kanega. So Kyle Kanega, who coached me a couple years at Johnson & Wales, he essentially was my first contact into any wrestling at all at the college level. So I visited the school, and at this time it's I don't know, we're getting close to June. School's almost done. I haven't even applied to a single school yet. So I ended up, after going and meeting with the head coach Lonnie Morris and getting a tour of the school, I pretty much knew this is where I'm going. Partly because I thought it was a good fit, but also partly because I didn't have any other options. So I had put myself in a position, because I didn't really know what I was doing in the way of searching for the right school, and I kind of just fell upon Johnson & Wales, and it ended up working out great for me, certainly, and I'm glad I went there. I just know that I won't say by luck, certainly, because I think God's got a plan for all of us, but for me it was if I had met Kyle Kanega at that tournament, it was maybe I wasn't going to wrestling college. So from there, after I finished at Johnson & Wales, I went to Sacred Heart and coached with John Clark for a year, and that's when I really learned the recruiting process. How should I go about contacting a coach? When I go and reach out to a coach, what kind of information do I give them? Should I be sending them my video? Should I send them a highlight video? Should I send them, matches that I lost? What am I sending to the coach to get his attention? Because, what you mentioned with, hey, I'm just from Rhode Island. I'm some who am I at some random tournament? Random school out in Pennsylvania. How's this guy supposed to know who I am? And I think wrestlers and parents don't understand sometimes how many other wrestlers there are. So it's like I might be like, yeah, I'm coming out of Rhode Island, I'm a 2-time state champ. Like I'm thinking I'm the hot business. Like,
Yeah.
and I come to find out that like when I start my first week at Johnson Wales, there's like 3 New Jersey State champs in my weight class. I don't know if there were 3 New Jersey State champs, but it was like
Yeah.
a couple guys top 3, and it was like the coaches kind of had told me at that point that coming from a smaller state, it's like you're just one of almost an endless amount of wrestlers. So you have to be the one planting the seed. Even if you're a couple-time state champ, it doesn't mean someone's going to come and find you. You've got to essentially start those conversations, go and visit those schools, work the connections, and I think people don't really understand how close they are to a connection from now from Drexel. If someone around is like, hey, I want to take a look at Drexel, they should reach out to you, and now they're like, hey, I know Ebed, from Rhode Island. Now you have that connection, and when you go into a Drexel visit, an unofficial visit of the sort, it's like, it's not like, hey, I'm some random guy. He knows you, so then you build that relationship right from the start.
So what do you think is the first step for a kid to do, and at what time should they be doing that? Is this right? Is this sophomore year in high school? And what's the first step they take in order to get that contact with the coach?
Yeah, that's a good question. It could start as early as your sophomore year. Some people even freshman year. You can't really. You're very limited as to what you can do. But I would say starting your junior year is when you should really be looking at what schools do I want to go to, what am I looking for out of the school, whether it's what I want to do career-wise, do I want to be in-state or out-of-state, and you're going to start by making a list. Essentially, you make a list. It can be 20 schools, it can be 10 schools. You're going to make a list and start visiting unofficially as many as you can. Start reaching out to coaches. And my recommendation is, if you're from Rhode Island, is to visit all the schools in Rhode Island, whether you plan to go or not. And this is something that I tell a lot of the guys that I do lessons with or that I coach, that you need to go visit Brown, visit Johnson Wales, visit Rick, visit Roger Williams. Now that Sacred Heart's kind of an up-and-coming program, go visit Sacred Heart. And now it's like you can go and visit 5 schools in like 2 weekends, and you get a feel for kind of a wide variety. Because even just in Rhode Island, you've got Brown, Johnson Wales, and Rick all in Providence. So you get like that's a little bit of that city feel. Even though Providence is a small city, you kind of like, do I like the city or not?
Yeah.
If not, maybe I'm out at Roger Williams. Do I like kind of their location? Do I like their coaches? So certainly make a list and then go and visit as many schools as you possibly can. And that was kind of the first step.
Now do you have to wait till your junior year to do actual visits with coaches? Is there like a certain time?
Yeah, so there is certainly a certain time. There's like limitations to what you can and can't do. And I don't know if I don't think they've changed recently, but they may be. Like there's requirements for coaches not being able to reach out to athletes until they're at a certain point in their high school career. But you could always reach out, send them an email, hey, I'm interested in your school, I'd like to do an unofficial visit.
Okay.
An unofficial visit is essentially just like going to see the school.
Now in that email where you're like, hey, I want to do an unofficial visit, is it important to also include a video of your wrestling, a transcript, or is this unofficial more just like you don't really need that information when you email the coach?
Mm-hmm.
Like normally as an athlete emailing you saying, hey, I want to come on an unofficial visit, here's my transcript, here's my SAT, ACT scores, and here's a video of me in my state finals.
Yeah,
is that what you want?
Yeah, so you want to make it as easy as possible for the coaches. And like when I was over at Sacred Heart, we were recruiting. I think we had 100 unofficial visits within the first couple months we were there. So we had a lot of people coming in and out. And once you come for an unofficial, you check the school out. It's like, well, I don't even know how your grades are. You may have told me, but it's like I don't really, I'm not going to remember. If I talk to 100 kids and they tell me their grades, it's like, well, now I got to see it. So certainly transcript. If you've taken your SAT, ACT, send them both because it can't. Definitely send them both.
Now, do you just send a number, or is there like a sheet that people normally
You want to send like you can go to your guidance counselor and get an official copy of transcript. You can also you want to send an official copy of ACT, SAT scores.
Okay.
And certainly it's good to include a video. Sometimes I know now it's a little easier with a lot of stuff being on Flow. Include a link, maybe a couple links to some of your videos. I would recommend not so much sending highlight videos, even though it's kind of it might be cool. It's tough to get a feel for a person's style just based on their 5-second takedowns and then just smoking up some kid that is not good.
Yeah. So you recommend like a good match against a good opponent, maybe the full 7 minutes or something along those lines, where they're showing that maybe like what kind of attributes you're looking for in those matches. Like, do you want to see a tough kid who fights all the way?
Yeah.
I mean, is that more personal from coach to coach, or like what kind of style are you looking for when you see?
So there's certain things for sure that when I was coaching at Sacred Heart, we were looking for, like, as a coaching staff, and each school might be a hair bit different, style wise, as far as goes for maybe which even techniques they're looking for, but for the most part, you're looking for somebody who is attacking, going on the offense. If I'm 6 minutes into watching a kid's video and he hasn't taken a single shot yet, it's kind of like, one, it's a boring match to watch, but it's like there's not a lot of action, and you've got to be able to attack and take people down. So I certainly, when I was coaching Clark, we certainly wanted kids who were attacking, not afraid, just going after it, not holding back, and whatever happens, happens.
Okay. All right. So what you're telling kids to do, athletes, is make a list of schools, contact these coaches. Now their emails are just right on their website. You can find.
A lot of times right on the website. If you would do a Google search, you can find it pretty quick. Okay. You can ask, another good way is ask the club coaches. A lot of times the club coaches, you've been in communication with a lot of Division 1, 2, and 3 coaches. Yeah. Same with me. Same with Serge over at Metaponchi. There's a lot of people. Coach Joyce is a really good one over at Pontiac. Reach out to these coaches and ask them, ask them, who should I be talking to?
Yeah, I want to get into this school or whatever.
Yeah, and usually everyone's more than welcome to give you information. It's not like, they're certainly not holding back.
Okay, so what are some numbers that you're looking for specifically for the GPA for the transcript and the SAT, ACT scores, so people kind of know what schools are generally looking for?
Yeah.
And maybe some things, their freshman, sophomore year, you're really applying your junior year to schools. So those are the numbers that you need to get to. So maybe somebody that's a freshman and a sophomore that's looking to go Division 1 or to a certain school, their GPA might be below that number, and maybe you can give them kind of like...
Yeah, that's a good point for sure. I'm just looking at here. One of the forms that I get when I was coaching, essentially I get a form where I would fill out. So let's say you want to come to my school. Yeah. You send me your transcript. I then go on the computer and I'm typing in every one of your classes. All right, let's say it's English 9. Yeah. So English 9th grade, what'd you get? You got an A or whatever it is, and I'll go through and fill it out. And once that's filled out, I'll essentially get your eligible GPA, which sometimes certain courses don't count. And sometimes you can take an honors class, and some honors classes will count, a weighted GPA will count for more. Yeah. Sometimes it's I took an honors class, but it's if that honors class isn't in an official honors class through the NCAA, it doesn't count. So it won't help you.
Yeah, it's similar to me. Again, I took this film class that essentially didn't count as an English course.
Mhm.
So that wouldn't show up on your, that wouldn't
Correct.
be
It would show up
included
like
in
as an
your
elective,
GPA
but
or
it wouldn't.
something,
It's
yeah.
not going to help you. No.
Okay.
Really.
So what number are you looking for with the GPA?
So each school is definitely a little different with that, but yeah, it really depends on where you're trying to go. But there's certainly a minimum. So there is, and I don't know if it's changed. So it may be changing year to year, maybe adjusting, but there is a minimum GPA. If your GPA is below a certain limit, it's like you can't go D1. You're going to lose that eligibility. You might be able to, they might let you in, but essentially you just be a regular student. You can't wrestle.
Yeah.
And the GPA, for example, you have your GPA and then your SAT score, and they combine. So let's say here my GPA is, I'm just going to throw random numbers here. My GPA is a 3.0. Well, if my GPA is a 3.0, my SAT scores, I might be able to get like, let's say my SAT 600 or something.
Yeah.
If my GPA is a 3.5, I might be okay with getting like a 520. So the higher your GPA is,
The lower your SAT score can be.
yeah, and usually the other thing too is usually if you have a high GPA, usually your SAT scores are high. So
Yeah.
don't you never want to be banking like, I'm gonna let my grades slip because I know my SAT scores will be low. So you don't wanna do that.
So why are grades so important? You're like, obviously you need a certain grade to even get into the school, but why are grades so important? Is it the scholarship in order to get like, you want to give each kid as little money as possible essentially from your team?
Mm-hmm.
So they're, if they can get more academic scholarship from the school, then they don't,
That definitely
they're not
does
as
help.
bad on the,
That's something that certainly, and like, a lot of people looking to go Division I or Division, most people are not going to get scholarships. So that is the hard truth. So there is that aspect where, almost no matter where you're going, you might be taking some sort of loan out.
yeah.
And the higher your GPA and your SAT scores are, the more academic money you get, and the less you have to pay, over those 4 years. And it could be as high as getting, 10, 12 grand a year. Over 4 years, you're talking 40, 45, just 45 grand just for having good grades through high school.
Yeah. Now, is there anything else that you kind of noticed? What kind of other aspects of recruiting that you've learned from being the head assistant at Sacred Heart?
Yeah. So here's another good point. Would be they had these like recruiting combines. So like Cornell might host one. Back in the day, Brown hosted one. And basically, you would show up. You and 50 or 60 other kids would show up. You have like a T-shirt with the number on the back. The coaches are sitting there. They've got, let's say you're number 23. I got number 23, and next to it says Evan Gerald, his GPA, state champ, New England place finisher, whatever stats that
Yeah.
you want to have in there will be in there. And I, as a coach, can look through this. I can look through 100 kids in a weekend. And it's if you're and a lot of times you're not going to be like during these combines you're going to be talking to an assistant or a second assistant coach, but if you're kind of like I'm lost, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, these combines are a great idea to get in contact with a lot of coaches fast.
So is a combine like where a bunch of different coaches are there, or is it just like Brown's going to have one where they invite 50 guys, or you apply to this thing and then just the Brown coaches are there? Or is it combine with like Brown, a bunch of schools mixed together?
So you could have both. You could Brown could do a camp and have it for the people that they're looking for specifically. But usually it'll be let's say Brown's hosting a combine. Johnson Wales will usually be there. Roger Williams, the Brown coaches,
Yeah.
the Rick coaches. You might have the Sacred Art coach. You might have Western New England. So people in that area will come and you might have 10, 15 college coaches you can talk to.
So how would, this is kind of my guess. So if you're an athlete and you have your list of schools, you're reaching out for unofficial visits, would you also include, in that email saying, hey, do you have a combine, or do you have a clinic, where a prospect clinic, sometimes it's called, right? That I could be a part of. Is that a good question to ask these coaches to see if you can, get in on one of those?
It certainly is. I mean, with COVID going on right now, I don't know if there's any combines really going across the country, but they may be having, let's say you're doing summer camps. You probably are gonna have to work a little bit harder to get in contact. You're probably gonna have to do more phone calls. So it's, it take you whatever, an hour to just sit down and make 15, 20 calls to the different schools. Like call up, you can call up 10, 20 schools in an hour. Yeah. You just sit down and Peter call up, hey, I'm interested. Can you tell me a little about your program? I want to go into business or engineering or whatever. What does your school offer? You just got to pick the phone up and start making calls.
Yeah. All right. Is there anything else that you could think of that would be important for athletes to know?
I'm sure there's plenty more. I think what we can do is what we'll do is we'll make a little list for you of just kind of the process starting from square one. Let's say making that list of schools, narrowing it down, calling the coaches, sending them an email with all the information they need, unofficial visit, official visit, and then picking the school at the end.
Okay. All right. Well, lastly, I want to talk about maybe kind of some of the stuff we're trying to implement at our club that could support these athletes. One thing that interests me is actually starting an RTC, which may give the opportunity for coaches in Rhode Island to be in contact with athletes. One thing at Drexel is we had a RTC with Drexel and Penn University, and anybody I think within 250 miles that qualified was able to go to this RTC. Any high schooler was able to go to this practice, and they were able to meet the coaches. And this was before your junior year, so it was almost a loophole where you don't actually have to be a junior
to start
the process. Yeah. So that's one thing that I think we want to implement in Rhode Island, so that Brown and Rick, Jay Wu, Roger Williams, Sacred Heart, Harvard, and all the other programs around can get a look at some of these guys earlier on. You can almost have a combine or a prospect camp every weekend, maybe throughout the summer. Another thing I think that might be important down the road is, you talk about how important academics is. I think that's something that definitely needs to be brought into wrestling programs. I know down at Mayo Quanchi they have, a study room. That's something I think that's very important as well. So I think clubs out there, look to kind of implement maybe some of the academics or something, make that full student athlete that you're looking for. Any closing thoughts?
I think that's it. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. You can reach out through Facebook. You can send us an email. You can just comment right under here. We'll get back pretty quick. There's definitely, we can keep going. There's a lot more information on it. But if you have questions specific to what you're looking for, maybe, or how we can help you, feel free to just let us know.